Wan stood at the entrance of the grand venue, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She was about to marry Jungkook. As she took a deep breath and began to walk down the aisle, her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Taehyung. Their gazes locked, and for a moment she saw the guilt and regret in his eyes before he looked away. His shoulders slumping in shame. Vian's heart clenched at the sight, but she pushed the pain aside and focused on Jungkook, who stood at the altar looking at her with adoration and respect. Jungkook's eyes never left Vian as she made her way towards him, his heart swelling with a mixture of joy and sadness. Joy because he was finally marrying the woman he had loved from afar for so long. And sadness because he knew she didn't feel the same way. But he was determined to make her happy, to be the best husband he could be. As Ryan reached the altar, Jungkook took her hand in his touch warm and comforting. He gave her a small nervous smile before the priest began the ceremony. As they exchanged vows, Ryan's voice wavered slightly with emotion, but Jungkook's steady gaze and reassuring smile gave her strength. She promised to stand by him through thick and thin, to cherish and support him in all their days together. And as Jungkook made his vows to her, Ryan looked down, not meeting his gaze. The exchange of rings was a bittersweet moment for Ryan as she slid the band onto Jungkook's finger, knowing that it symbolized a commitment she wasn't sure she could fulfill. Jungkook did the same for her, his eyes filled with unwavering determination and love. Finally, the priest announced them husband and wife, and Jungkook looked at Wyan for permission. But when he saw her look away nervously, he just leaned in to press a gentle kiss on Wyan's forehead. It was a tender gesture filled with unspoken promises and silent understanding. The guests present were shocked seeing Jungkook as the groom, but Taehyung's parents handled the situation at the moment by calling it a misunderstanding. The ceremony came to an end with Wyan crying while hugging her mother and her dad, pleading with Jungkook to keep her happy. It was now time to leave for her new home, new life, new everything. Jungkook helped her sit in the car and closed the door for her before going to the other side and sitting in. The other cars of Kim's left, and finally Wyan's car started moving. Leaving behind her mom, dad, and a past that was going to trouble her forever. As Wyan and Jungkook arrived at the grand mansion that belonged to the Kim family, a sense of unease settled in the pit of Wyan's stomach. She knew that facing Taehyung every day would not be an easy task, especially after the dramatic events that had unfolded at the wedding. As they entered the opulent foyer, they saw Mrs. Kim was talking to Taehyung. Her arms crossed and a stern expression on her face. Wyan's hand clutched the side of her dress. Why did you have to do all this drama, Taehyung? Mrs. Kim's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence of the room. Why couldn't you just marry Wyan? Taehyung, who stood there, his head down, looked up at the couple. Tell me, Taehyung, she yelled, making everyone present in the room flinch. Mom, I've already told you I did this because I had no other option. Stop with your excuses and say the truth before I throw you out of this house, Mrs. Kim said in pure anger. Say it, Taehyung. Look at that girl. She is suffering today because of you. Do you have any idea what she must be feeling? I never thought I would raise such a nuisance. Is it my fault that I don't love her? Is it my fault that I couldn't develop those feelings for her? Is it my fault that my heart felt attracted to her sister and not her? I know I'm being selfish, but I I can't control my feelings, Mom. I tried to. I really did. But I can't love anyone else except Gia. I'm sorry, but if you want to throw me out, do it because I can't marry someone else but Gia. Ryan, who heard everything loud and clear, felt her heart drop at Taehyung's words. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned away. Without a second thought, Ryan fled the scene. She heard Jungkook's voice calling out her name, her feet carrying her through the maze like corners of the mansion. Until she found herself in a secluded room with a large window overlooking the moonlit garden. She sank to the floor, her sobs echoing in the empty room as she struggled to contain the pain and heartache that threatened to consume her. Jungkook turned towards Taehyung and said, "Thank you so much, Hyung, for making her day so much better than it was going." He went behind Ryan after spitting out the harsh words. She couldn't shake the memories of the love she had once harbored for Taehyung. And the pain of knowing he had never returned her feelings. And now, hearing the argument between Mrs. Kim and Taehyung only added to her turmoil. Jungkook, who had been trailing behind Ryan, finally caught up to her. He found her in a dimly lit room, sitting by the window. Her tear streaked face illuminated by the soft moonlight streaming in. Ryan's shoulders shook with silent sobs as she stared out at the night sky, lost in her own thoughts. Jungkook approached her slowly, his heart aching at the sight of her pain. Without a word, he sat down beside her, offering a comforting presence without intruding her grief. He placed a gentle hand on her back, a silent gesture of support and understanding. Vian turned to look at him, her eyes filled with unshed tears and vulnerability. Jungkook's gaze was warm and compassionate, his expression one of genuine concern for her well being. In that moment, Vian felt a sense of solace in his presence, a flicker of hope in the darkness that threatened to consume her. I'm sorry, Jungkook whispered softly, his voice filled with sincerity. Can't imagine how you must be feeling right now, but please know that I am here for you, Vian. As a friend, as someone who cares deeply about you. Vian's heart swelled at his words, touched by his kindness and empathy. She leaned into his comforting embrace, allowing herself to release the pent up emotions that had been weighing down her. Jungkook held her close, offering silent reassurance through his actions rather than words. His arms wrapped around her in a protective embrace. He felt her tears soaking through his shirt, but he didn't mind. All he cared about was being there for her in her moment of need, offering her the support and comfort she so desperately craved. As Vian's sob began to subside, Jungkook gently wiped her tears with his thumb, his touch tender and soothing. I know this may be not what you wanted, Vian, he murmured softly. But I promise to always be by your side, as a friend first and foremost. And when you're ready, I'll be here waiting for you. Something more. Vian looked up at Jungkook. Thank you, Jungkook. Vian whispered hoarsely, her voice filled with emotion. I appreciate your kindness more than you know. Jungkook smiled gently at her, his eyes warm and reassuring. You don't have to thank me, Vian. I care about you deeply, and I always be here for you, no matter what. I know I should have confessed my feelings earlier, but I never wanted to break your and Hyung's relationship, even if it meant keeping my own feelings a secret. She nodded at his words in understanding. And as they sat together in the quiet room, bathed in soft glow of moonlight, Van knew that the road ahead would be difficult and filled with challenges. But with Jungkook by her side, she felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness once again.